So I grew up in Australia. I've been living in the Netherlands for 25 years. I'm married to a Dutch lady, my wife, whose father actually started the ministry of Christians for Israel. So I grew up as a Christian in the Anglican Church. I had a lot of Jewish friends, but I had no idea about the biblical significance of Israel. Through this ministry, I've learned so much. But I'm also an international lawyer, and part of my work is working in the area of international law in relation to Israel. And what we are doing is seeking to understand the way that the international legal system works from a Christian perspective. I think many Christians are confused about the modern political state of Israel. Okay, we see in the media, we see soldiers, we see Palestinians being oppressed. So we have an image, and it doesn't seem to fit with the Bible. We need to understand the politics of the modern international legal system. And the restoration of the Jewish people to the land has enormous political implications. And there are many nations that are opposed to the idea of the Jewish people coming back. And the international legal system is really being used, in my opinion, to try and stop this process. When in actual fact, the Jewish people are simply returning to the land where they were born, where they have existed for thousands of years. And Christianity and the Islam came much later. So the Jewish people have this deep connection with Jerusalem, with cities like Hebron and Bethlehem and Shiloh. And they're all now called the West Bank and the Palestinian territories. But God has the purpose of bringing the Jewish people back to that land, together with others. The Jews don't think they're the only ones who can live there. They want to live there in peace with their neighbors. But they belong in Jerusalem, in the old city of Jerusalem, and in the West Bank, because it's the biblical heartland that the Bible speaks about. So what we're trying to do is to help Christians understand how the Bible fits into the modern political reality, and to understand the UN, how the UN works, the political systems and international law work. And we've developed a team of international lawyers in many countries, and we're trying to articulate to governments, to nations, why they should support the Jewish people being in the land. And at the end of the day, Jerusalem is one of the key issues. Do the Jewish people have a right to govern, administer the whole city of Jerusalem? What's actually happening? And there may be two aspects to it. One is the biblical. The other is the international legal one. And if you go back in history and look at the way that it all developed, the Jewish people have a perfect right to live in Jerusalem and the West Bank. They're not foreign occupiers of these territories that belong to some other people. They were promised to the Jewish people 100 years ago at the end of the First World War, at a time when the nations of the Middle East were gaining their independence, and Palestine was one of those areas. And the international community said, we will allow the Jewish people to re-establish their homeland in Palestine, just as Syrians would become an Arab nation of Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt. They all became nations around that time. So the international community 100 years ago said, yes, we will support the Jewish people coming back from the diaspora, from the pogroms of Russia, from Europe, from other nations to come to their homeland. And we will also help the Arabs to develop their nations. So over the last 100 years, the international community has taken steps back from those promises to the point now where they want to exclude effectively the Jewish people from living in most of Palestine. They want to put them in a tiny little part of it, surrounded by nations which are not only collapsing, but are many of them vehemently anti-Israel, and some of them explicitly intending to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. So I think as an international community we have an enormous responsibility to work out, are we looking after the Jewish people as we should?
Alpha.